Hi everyone and welcome to UI5ers Live. So in today's episode, we will cover the following topics. First of all, we will go into the new features of the string replacer tooling extension that were made by Dominik Feininger. And therefore, I'm particularly pleased that Dominik is with us today to take this part. Hi, Dominik.
Hello.
Yeah, and then we will focus on some usability enhancements that were done in the UI5 table personalization. And for this, we asked our colleagues Oliver Stoyanovski.
Hi.
Martin Häuser.
Hi.
And Dirk Becker to join.
Hi.
Yeah, and as always, in on this, Stefan Beck.
Hi.
Peter Müßig.
Hi.
And Andreas Kunz.
Hello.
Peter, I think maybe you will also have a topic today, right?
Now, as you point this out, yeah. So there will be also a topic, if we have enough time, hopefully at the end. I will give you some introduction in something which has happened in the UI5 ecosystem, libraries, and how to use these customs in your applications. That's what you may see at the end.
And Andreas, you have also something to share, I believe.
Yeah, indeed. This Babel plugin transform modules UI5, that's the centerpiece of the TypeScript pipeline, build pipeline, so to say. And this was developed originally by Ryan Murphy from Canada. But as he is no longer really actively developing it and working with UI5, he has now donated this to the UI5 community. So this project has moved over to the UI5 community organization at GitHub. This means we can now continue developing this and adding features and really bringing this to life again. So we can introduce also more and better features to our TypeScript build pipeline. So thanks to Ryan for developing it and to donating it, basically.
Yeah, at least we released also one first version on that, which updated all the dependencies now to the latest ones. So it should be now in a good stage again.
Yeah, and nothing changes for the users. So the NPM release package name is the same one. It's just now the ownership, basically, that we have again. Now we have contributor rights and we can take pull requests and so on. So that's it. So I think we can go to the actual topics now. I hand over to Dominik.
My topic today is the UI5 tooling string replacer. We are currently developing a rather large application here at JNSoft. This application is composed of multiple components, UI5 components in a mono repository. During this development, we had some requirements for changes for the UI5 middleware modules. And now in particular, I'm going to present the change in the string replacer. For us, it was during development just the easiest way to contribute to the community and directly use the GitHub repo. And thanks, Peter, for really having a fast review on my changes to have my changes fast in the repository and use it without any flaws. I think and I hope you're all familiar with the tooling and in particular the UI5 YAML. What I did is to restructure the module. The old module names were UI5 string replace and UI5 middleware string replace. These are now deprecated. There are no new releases coming. But these two modules, which were previously in two different folders here in the ecosystem showcase, like you can see all the middlewares over here and all the tasks in a separate folder in the packages. It's now located in UI5 Tooling-Stringreplace, now in one folder and have shared code base where before was like some copy-paste stuff going on. This results in two new module names, which are already on NPM. You can find them UI5 Tooling-Stringreplace task and the Tooling-Stringreplace middleware.
To be clear, it's one module. It's one NPM package. It's the UI5 Tooling-Stringreplace. Oh man, And this contains then this task and this middleware, and you can map them in the UI5 YAML.
Yep, right. Thanks for clarifying that. Was a mix-up from my side. Which then also leads me to the first call to action, which is still open. Do the same for the compile less task. Same thing over there, and same to do, still open. Also, we introduced some new features. As you can see here in the UI5 YAML, the new configuration for the string replace task now contains a prefix. This is for the environment file where you can prefix your variables now, which are replaced. Also, there are some changes to the default exclude. There was kind of a bug going on where in video and image files, there was a lookup starting and maybe a replace going on, which then corrupted the file. Also fixed that. Yeah, and the biggest change is now the name of the tasks. What's now going on? I have the application running, the example application here from the repository. The replacement, which you can see here in the UI5 YAML file, is just very basic example. The version is replaced in the application to the 1.00 snapshot. So index.html file, we have in the title this variable, and it's going to be replaced like that, the snapshot. And what's now also in the repo is a test, a VDI5 test, which is executed during the pipeline build. Going to see that here. Yeah. There it comes up. MacBook running slow during Zoom. And just going to execute a quick test. If the replacement was successful, okay, this maybe not the interesting part since it takes just so long. Test rather simple, but it's now executed, which is quite important to make sure that everything is running. I would like to point out a still open issue at this point. And clarify the order of these tasks. So the tasks are loaded into the modules, into the middleware from top going down in the order, but executed the other way around. We have still an open issue, which you can find in the open UI5 community here. Yeah.
Maybe Dominik, the main point with this order is that you have to know that so the execution is really as documented from ordering or adding the tasks or the middlewares to the specific other tasks. So you have this after or before middleware, how you can add them. And if you always say after middleware or after task and use the task name, then it's like stacking the things in. So, but always it adds the next task or the next as the first entry then in this after task. So the first task which goes after task replace version will be then added directly after one in the order which is built in this one. And this is, I think, the most important thing to know from the ordering perspective, that this may happen. And in case of you face a strange behavior and your task or middleware comes too late, then you please think about this exactly. You should know that.
Yeah, because like the open issue points out, for me it was the transpile and the string replace task specifically, where just one is running and the next one doesn't get the changed file. So the middlewares are not able to pass the result of the middlewares before to the next middleware. So kind of like there's an exclusion in there.
Especially in the middlewares, this is more trickier than for the tasks, because for tasks you operate on the workspace, and for the middlewares, the first one who takes care of handling the resource and sends the response back to the client, this wins, and no other middleware then afterwards continues to handle this.
except for the live reload, which is then important to have at on the very last in your configuration. And this is under investigation. Feel free to contribute. This is also call to action, kind of. And that's already it. Some minor changes, some restructuring, and motivation, even for an app developer to use and contribute to the ecosystem. It's the best way, best community, fast feedback. Thumbs up for that.
Thank you, Dominik. Other questions? I think the one has been answered here.
Yeah, but I think like as this was like in the announcement at the beginning.
So the question was what's the difference between the UI5 tooling transpile and the Babel plugin, which I talked about, this transforming plugin. And the answer is the latter, the Babel plugin transforms the structure of the UI5 controller code, so classes and module loading, to the regular UI5 syntax. Can also be used with JavaScript and only with TypeScript. And this Babel plugin is wrapped by this UI5 tooling transpile task. So this is called internally. And also I think the regular TypeScript transpilation is also wrapped there. So it's all hidden within a package that happens inside the UI5 tooling. And this means you can write directly TypeScript code in your web app folder, and it can be served to the browser, and behind the scenes it will be transformed and transpiled. So it simplifies basically the tooling task, transpiles it behind the scenes, it simplifies and wraps everything, and the Babel thing is where it's actually implemented, the transformation.
So the assumption of Marian is correct that when he's using the UI5 tooling transpile with TypeScript, he does not need to change anything.
You anyway don't have to change anything because it just is a different organization where it's maintained. No names change, no package names, but you are using it behind the scenes without directly having it.
This is also what we at the end will do. We will also go forward and change all tutorials, demos, generators to use the UI5 tooling transpile in the future. This saves a lot of configuration in your project, and it simplifies a lot, and we can handle most of the things then behind the scenes.
As there are no further questions, I guess we can go now to the second topic.
We've made some major improvements to the table personalization. So before you get into the technical details and how you can utilize these panels also in freestyle implementations, I'm just showing a demo kit example from the Smart Table here. So you can see, you can find this in the demo kit in the Smart Table sample section. And here it's just application utilizing a filter bar and a Smart Table beneath. And the smart controls themselves have these filter personalization options inbuilt. You can always see these in this cogwheel icon here. Viewing the settings dialog, if you click on these, you can see the view settings dialog here, which gives you several functionality and features to personalize your table. Usually you have up to 4 options, such as the columns, sort, filter, and group personalization. Basically, this columns panel here gives you the possibility to select, deselect columns, reorder them. You can see that on hovering over these different column entries here, you directly get these buttons to reorder the columns. You can also use drag and drop if you prefer it. And yeah, you can also search for certain columns in case you have a long list of columns. In addition, in the sort tab here, you have the possibility to sort for these different columns using this combo box option here. You can select and deselect different columns and directly choose if you want to sort ascending or descending, remove them, and also reprioritize them by adding multiple sorters, for instance. Similar to that, there's also an option to group, which looks a little more simplified than the sorting, where you just have the possibility, depending on the configuration for your table, if it's enabled or not. If there are groupable columns, all of that is true also for sortable and filterable. And here you can just select which column you would like to group for. There were major improvements done to the filter option here, which is now basically giving you the option to have an inbuilt filter functionality, as you might know it from the filter bar. So for instance, if you can see here, you have this filter bar on top. And for example, here, this availability filter field, you can see there is a value help associated to this field where you have the possibility to also have this more complex value help that you can configure for your application. And now you also have the possibility to select for columns that you would like to filter for that are configured as filterable by a service, for instance, and directly either type a value directly into this filter field or even use the complex value helps. And you can see in this application here, you can also reuse these different value helps between your different implementations. So basically you have the functionality of a filter bar now directly inbuilt in your table, and you can basically decide if you're, for example, in an object page scenario where you have only a table that you can directly use this inbuilt filter-like functionality, or you can also use it as in this case here, in addition to your regular filter bar. And in addition, you can also use this reset functionality in this P13N dialog to directly go back to the view settings as defined in your currently selected variant. So as already mentioned, all of these features for smart controls, it's true that these are directly integrated and inbuilt, and you get these out of the box. But in addition, also here in the documentation in the demo kit, you can find an entry for personalization in the more about controls section. And here you can see that after we implemented this and redesigned and re-improved the user experience, we also got the feedback that there are not just table use cases and also other use cases. You can also see the same view settings dialog for chart implementations. And we basically opened and modularized these artifacts that you can also use them in a freestyle approach, and you can directly see them located in the SAP MP13N space. There you can find the pop-up control, the selection panel, sort panel, and groupable, basically the panels that I just briefly showcased. And if I'm jumping to the API reference of the P13N pop-up, you have certain options. So it's called pop-up since you can also decide if you would like to display this in a dialog or in a responsive popover. So there are different pop-up modes available. In addition, you can also find a control sample here. And in this control sample, you can basically see that this pop-up is not just coupled to table personalization, but you can really use it for any implementation you would like or implement on your own. So you can see if I'm just pressing this button here, this custom settings dialog is being opened. You can also see the title and the text and all of this. You can define all of this by your own, even these titles and the tab bar here. So you can customize this to whatever implementation you would like to achieve with these personalization panels and controls. So for instance, when I'm selecting something here, you can also see whenever there's any change made within these personalization panels, there's an event being fired. You can see it's exactly the same user experience as for the smart controls and the personalization settings. And you can also see the data structure demonstrated here on how it's behaving, and you can then directly implement on top of this and also directly use this JSON snapshot-like representation for persistence. Also, when quickly taking a look at the implementation, you can see that it's quite easy to use. You have this P13N pop-up where you have the option to define a custom title, listen to certain events such as the close event here to do your implementation on top of this, and also the panels aggregation where you have the possibility to add different panels such as here the selection panel, sort panel, and group panel. You can also see here that the footprint is quite easy. You have the possibility to define a custom title, listen to the different events, and do your implementation reacting on this. There's also an interface called iContent within this P13N section. So you can also add any kind of custom panel directly into this P13N dialog. So you could also then have an additional tab here. So also there you have the possibility to mix in your custom content directly to the standard settings. And yeah, and with that, there are basically the panels available and also how they look, behave. And with that, I would like to hand over to Oliver, who will show you in addition how you can utilize this in the column menu.
I will present briefly the new column menu. We have created this control in order to bring the personalization closer to the content, and it serves as an entry point for the table personalization via the column headers. This new control is public since version 110.
And application developers can easily add content to it using the default quick actions aggregation, which is intended for contextual quick actions for the corresponding column, and the items aggregation, which is meant for global table settings. The column menu can easily be used in both the responsive and grid table by just setting the header menu association of the corresponding column. So we have this association defined for the SAP-M column in the responsive table and for the SAP UI table column in the grid table. I will now jump to an example. Here I have the column menu defined inside a fragment, and it contains one quick action with a button. And in the items aggregation, it contains one item with a panel and a button inside it without any special application logic. And there is also one action item with a press event handler. Here is the code of the view XML, and this is the responsive table. And we are defining here the header menu association of the only for the first column. If I now go back to the example in the demo kit, and I click on the first column header, we can see the content that I showed in the code editor before. So one quick action, one item. The item opens in another view the panel with the button, and the action item executes the press event handler on click when the press event is fired. The responsive table didn't provide a built-in column menu before, so all the content that is shown here is has to be created by the application. And in the case of the grid table, we actually have so this is the old menu that existed before, and the new column menu replaces these features out of the box. So if I now switch to the new column menu, we have implemented a switch here to do that, and I'll also show some code. So here we are creating an instance of the new column menu, and then we are setting the header menu association of the first two columns. So basically we are using the same instance for the first two columns, and for the quantity columns, we are creating a custom menu with two action items. So let's go back to the example again. So now we can see the new column menu in place. The selection is applied to the correct column, even though I'm reusing the same instance. And this is the custom menu. So for example, here we have implemented a sort for this action item. In this example, we also see the default quick sort that is added by the table out of the box, but in real use case scenarios, this can be avoided, or we don't simply need an additional action item for sorting. The content of the column menu in the grid table depends on the configuration. So for example, if I enable column freeze, then I can see I see immediately the quick action in the menu. Or if I simulate a touch device, I have to reload the page in this case, and we can see that there is an additional resize button, which is only needed for touch devices. This one is not available for the desktop devices. So to wrap up this presentation, I will show an example with the smart table, where prior to version 110, the default menu in the smart table was the column header popover. Here we have sort and filter, and not much place left for additional actions, but in the newer version, we can see the new column menu in place, and here we have the option to choose whether we want to sort by customer or by name, which are basically the two sortable properties in this for this that are displayed in this column. And yeah, except that we have the menu items, which basically open the personalization dialog that Martin showed before, and here we can do some additional changes. The new column menu is also the default header menu for the MDC table, which is used with OData v4. And the only difference there is that these panels are not opened in the personalization dialog like here, but rather in another view within this popover. So with this, I think I've said everything that I wanted to for this session, and yeah, the stage is open for questions.
As you mentioned it yourself, there was not this question there, but you mentioned MDC. So I know that quite a lot of people are waiting when this becomes public available also for our open source community. Any updates on this?
We are currently working on this. We are evaluating what to do, and what we want to do is to improve the documentation. We want to have a small development guide with a few examples that we publish together with the MDC library. As you know, currently it's in state experimental. We want to remove this, and we want to release it for public use. As Andrea said before, and we are heading towards the UI5 Con, and this is our goal, that we can present it with the UI5 Con as a public library that you can also use. Then, as Oliver said, it's for v4, but you can also use it in other scenarios, and we want to open up those other scenarios pretty soon.
And there's one question now, and this is, why does personalization, as a sorting and filter and so on, for MDC looks different than for the smart controls?
So this is due to some technical limitations in the smart table. So this difference that I mentioned is the only noticeable difference, except that everything works the same.
Okay.
So maybe just to add there, that was also one major task that we strive for, to completely align this, that you're basically in the end, when you're working with this personalization dialogues, that really for no matter if you're using v2 or v4 smart controls, that it's really the identical layout for the personalization. And by now we should have closely achieved it. The only limitation left is what Oliver just mentioned, that in the v2 smart table is still opening in a separate dialog when you're jumping to this column menu entries. But really the panels themselves, since they're also freestyle available, it's really exactly also not just look-alike, but really the same layout control, which is basically being used. And yeah, so it's really exactly the same, no matter if MDC or Data v2 smart controls.
I want to add on this. This was maybe the biggest achievement by the team, to have this, to eliminate these discrepancies in UI between the MDC library and the comp library.
Okay, that clarifies the question now. So Peter, what do you think? Is there enough time for your tip?
Yeah, at least I can show a little bit on that. That's definitely okay. Yeah, there was also a small question from Tobias about whether to clop for white spaces. So I also played around with that and typed it also an answer. It's possible, it's a little bit ugly, but let me share. So what I did quickly is to play a little bit around with the tooling to ignore a file with a white space inside before I start. So here I have the main view copy with a white space between view and a copy. So I copied that. And what you can do is then in your UI5 YAML, you can define excludes section here inside in the builder. And yeah, globbing is not so nice for white spaces, but if you do that trick with this approach here, that you select any folder depth and then wildcard space copy.xml, then this file is again filtered. And I also built this file already, or this project, and in the build output it's being sorted out. So this technically works. I didn't know that this is possible, so it was interesting to find that out. Okay, but the real topic I want to also present you now in the last 6 minutes is about libraries, custom libraries in combination with your application projects. It's always a topic when you are about to reuse things that you want to put them into libraries and ideally also use them optimally in your applications. So one thing which was really a long time missing here in the ecosystem project, and I mentioned it the last time in the UI5ers Live, that I have added here library projects to this. So there is the UI5 app inside, and this UI5 app, this has also a library related to that, the UI5 lib. So this is the JavaScript part. And in addition, I also created a TypeScript-based library next to the TypeScript application project and combined that. So both projects, the libts and the lib, they are created by these templates, these Yeoman generators we have in ECUI5. We could also in the meantime upgrade a little bit because of this, the UI5 tooling transpile stuff. But basically, if you look into that, in both cases, they come up with an example control. And the same here, it's an example control, but here this example control is being written in TypeScript instead of the JavaScript part. And then it was also the interesting piece, how to get this together to ideally develop. Because typically what you have, if you have a kind of project like this, so what I do here now, if you have dev or a start with it, and then you can test this whole thing. So if I go now on the workspace, I know it's PM here, so maybe I do it filter UI5 lib, and then I say dev, then this project starts up and I get my test page running for that, and that's it. If I change now things inside this project, so you know that there is reload also configured here in this project. And by the way, this is also interesting information for you. The live reload middleware has been enhanced to be configuration free. So it detects automatically which source files are related to that. And with that, you don't need to take care to map any folder here and inside that anymore. But now, if I change something, that's as usual, as you expect that, I save it, and then this change immediately is reflected here on the right-hand side. So, but now, besides having this library individually, it's interesting how to connect this to your application. So, typically, if you connect it to your application, a custom library, the first thing you would do is to create a dependency to that library. So if you look into the package.json now, here there is this, where do I have it? Oops. UI5 lib, it as a dependency to the project. And as I have still tooling 2.0 here in the ecosystem, you know that for tooling 2.0, we need to list the thing again in this dependency section for the UI5. But this is the thing you need to do to get it then in, and that in case if you start the application now, it's coming up. So this is now the application. And we should see the example control also on the main page. Here, this any text, this is being displayed here. A nice side effect, since we are here in the workspace and it's not like an NPM dependency, we just have as a normal dependency inside, we can now also benefit from having in the mono repository directly modifying the stuff. So as we have done it, let's put the alert inside. If I do that, you see it's reloading. It's also getting the update then finally in here. So let's take this a little bit further now. It's about now when you, so this is the development time. Development time now works pretty good here with that scenario. So the only thing you need to do is to put it in as a dependency, and then that's it. If it comes to build, and I think that's also an interesting part, and you want to include a custom library, one recommended thing or tip and trick is here that you also say, this is the include dependency. The benefit of this setting now in that the next time when you build your project, it's including this library into the build. So let's do it. You see it's running first the build of the library, all the tasks and middlewares configured, or the tasks configured there in this library project are being executed during the build, and then afterwards the application is being built. And the result of that is that in the target folder, or in the dist folder, you see then here in the resources, then also your library being displayed here. And now with having the library here inside, you can start this project then also in the development, in the productive mode. So I use the pm start command. This is using the UI5 dist, which is serving the content in the dist folder. And now it's serving the content from here inside. And what I did in addition, which is also maybe something interesting to share with you, is I added a second page to that, because here in the development mode, it's loading all the files, you know, in the development mode, and every file is loaded individually. But next to that, I have this index CDN part, which is then loading the preloads from the SDK for the UI5 resources, and the library is loaded locally. And the only thing you need to do for that part here is in the index CDN that you map here an additional resource routes in the bootstrap, which points then to your local resources, and that's it. So that's the missing link then at the end to make this also available productively. And this also works for TypeScript. And this is my last thing, because here in the TypeScript part, we develop typically with our TypeScript syntax, and then or this modern JavaScript syntax, and then you need to have a transpiler running. While there is here something in the UI5 YAML, the tooling transpile, and this is also available for development mode here in as a middleware. Then this is the part which is then used standalone. But if you also use this now in a combination with an application, then here it's the same thing. So in the application, you have a UI5, you have a package JSON. In the package JSON, we have the UI5 libts as a dependency. And there is one speciality now, the UI5 Tooling-Transpile middleware. It has now also a special option, transpile dependencies true. And this is now important for the developer. Now, if I start, and that's the last thing I do now, the development, the TypeScript development mode. So here also you see it's the same example control, but now from the TypeScript world. And now I can go here in the TypeScript world in my example TS, and let's put also the alert inside. So that's the easiest thing now. Save and reload, and it's happening. Because now it's also connected at dev time here for your project. And you get also this live reload experience for all your dependencies you have in your local workspace. You could also use linking, NPM linking for all these kind of things. That's possible, or you have a real released library consumed that way. Maybe from a build perspective, it's the same thing, just to let you know. It's also copying the library here inside. And during the build, it copies and transpiles the code, puts it here inside, and the same thing in the CDN package, you also map this namespace to the resources, and that's it. So with that, I'm done. And if there are questions, I'm open. Otherwise, reach out to me at any time. This really makes the development experience for libraries, for custom libraries in combination with the application even greater. And it also showcases a little bit now in this ecosystem project, how this can be really used for also developing a little bit more productive applications. And I think that's really the thing here behind that. If you have ideas to improve these scenarios even, reach out in the ecosystem, raise issues, suggest your PRs. So like Dominik did also with the string replacer, this was great to see that this evolves, and help to make this a living a vivid project with all cool ideas inside.
Nice, and it worked. So we are at the end. Thanks a lot for joining us today again. And next month, there will be another UI5ers Live with great topics about TypeScript or around TypeScript. So I hope this will be also interesting for you. I'm looking forward to this and looking forward to our guests next month, and wish you now a nice evening, nice day. Stay healthy and see you in April.
Yep. See you in April. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.